Right now, at dealerships, from Bankstown to Brisbane, something very uncomfortable is happening. Dual cab utes, the $80,000 ones with the terrain management systems and the premium leather and the names like Ranger Raptor and HiLux Rogue and Ranger Super Duty, are sitting on forecourts. Not for weeks, for months, and in some cases, sitting there with $4,000 fuel cards stapled to the deal just to get anyone, to take one home. The Ford Ranger, Australia's best-selling car for 3 consecutive years. The one Australians chose over every sedan, every hatchback, every SUV. The broader 4WD Ute segment is now down 18% year-to-date. 18%. That is not a slow quarter. That is not a blip. That is a market telling an industry something it desperately does not want to hear. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that something is. Because once you understand what is actually happening to Australia's ute obsession, you will never look at an $80,000 dual cab the same way again. If you're new here, this channel is no corporate sponsors, no manufacturer relationships, just the numbers. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. For the better part of a decade, the dual cab ute was the defining vehicle of Australian identity. And it made sense. Real tradies, real farms, real distances. The Ranger, the HiLux, the D-Max weren't just transport. They were a cultural statement. The promise that on any Friday afternoon, you could hook up the boat, load the family, and cover 500 kilometers of mixed terrain without a second thought. The manufacturers sold that promise brilliantly. Dusty red tracks, river crossings, campfires in the Kimberley, even as the vast majority of these vehicles were doing nothing more demanding than a Bunnings run and a school pickup. The vehicles got bigger, the feature lists got longer. The Ranger became a lifestyle product with a panoramic sunroof and a heated steering wheel, and the price crept past $60,000, then $70,000, then kept climbing, and Australians kept signing the paperwork. Then, somewhere in 2025, the music started to slow. By 2026, for a lot of buyers, it has stopped entirely. Because this is not one problem, it is 3, and they have all arrived at the same moment. The first is the one you feel every week at the Bowser. In March and April 2026, diesel prices pushed toward and past $3 a litre across multiple cities. A genuine supply disruption, the Strait of Hormuz, affected by the Iran conflict, sent refined fuel costs spiking in a matter of weeks. The federal government halved the fuel excise as emergency relief. That helped. But even after the cut, diesel remained well above where it was 3 years ago. What this means in practice: a diesel dual cab doing 15 to 20,000 kilometers a year is burning through fuel at prices that would have been unthinkable in 2021. Add servicing, registration, and comprehensive insurance on an $80,000 vehicle, and the all-in annual cost of running a large 4WD ute is punishing every year. Without fail, in 2021, with diesel under $1.60 and rates near zero, that math was uncomfortable but manageable. In 2026, with the cash rate at 4.35%, groceries where they are, and electricity bills still elevated, that math has become genuinely impossible for a significant slice of the people who used to be this segment's core buyers. But that's only the first crisis. Stay with me, because what happened to the price tag is where things get really difficult. The Ranger Super Duty starts at $82,990 before on-roads. The Raptor sits at $90,690. Even the Ranger Sport, not the flagship, the Sport rose $2,200 this year to over $71,000. These are not tradies' tools anymore. They are aspirational lifestyle vehicles, priced accordingly. And here is the trap that is quietly hurting a lot of Australian households right now. They financed their ute in 2021 or 2022, locked in 5 or 6 year terms to keep monthly repayments manageable. Then rates climbed, the mortgage got harder, diesel got more expensive. That $700 monthly repayment that felt fine when they signed is now competing with a budget that looks nothing like it did then. And you cannot easily escape. Residual values have softened. You may owe more than the private sale price. You are stuck paying for an asset that is depreciating, consuming expensive diesel, and bleeding your cash flow every single month. Ford understands this. That is why, in April 2026, they launched what they called a cost of living relief package. $4,000 fuel cards on outgoing Ranger stock, cuts on the hybrid version, discounts for primary producers. You do not give buyers $4,000 in fuel to spend because demand is strong. But here is the third crisis, and this one is permanent. In 2024, the BYD Shark 6 arrived in Australia. Nobody in the mainstream was paying much attention. It was Chinese, it was a plug-in hybrid, it was new, and Australia has always been slow to trust things that are new. Then, something happened that the established players did not anticipate. In its first full year, the Shark 6 registered close to 18,000 sales, nearly 1 in 10 of the entire dual-cab segment. In June 2026 alone, BYD as a brand came within 243 sales of overthrowing Toyota. Toyota, the company that has been Australia's best-selling car brand for 23 consecutive years. The Shark 6 starts at 57,900 before on-roads. It produces over 320 kilowatts combined, with a claimed 100 kilometers of EV-only range. Its official fuel consumption with the battery charged is around 2 liters per 100 kilometers, and on the new performance variant, that drops to 1.3. A tradie on short suburban runs could go weeks without touching the Bowser. Compare that to a diesel Ranger. At 10 liters per 100, in today's fuel environment, the gap is not marginal. It is a different financial reality on every single tank, and there is more coming. A Sherry diesel plug-in hybrid ute, the world's first turbo diesel PHEV dual cab, lands in Australia in late 2026, targeting 3,500 kilograms of towing. The last serious objection towing buyers had to the Chinese alternative is being answered, one specification at a time. Sean Hanley, Toyota, Australia's former Vice President of Sales and Marketing, said it publicly at the start of 2025. The era of the ute is over. It sounded provocative then. In May 2026, the Ranger and HiLux were knocked off the top of Australia's sales charts for the first time in years, replaced by the Tesla Model Y electric SUV. So, where does this leave the buyer who genuinely needs a capable dual cab? If you tow regularly, cover serious distances, or spend real time off-road, the Ranger and HiLux remain capable vehicles, and dealers are negotiating hard right now. But run the finance math honestly. Use current diesel prices, not 2021 prices. Factor in servicing and insurance on an $80,000 asset. Then compare that against the total cost of ownership on a Shark 6 or a comparable hybrid SUV covering the same distance. If most of your driving is urban school, runs, weekends, the hardware store, the honest answer is that you have been paying for capability you are not using, in a fuel type that is now expensive and volatile, on a vehicle that competes against genuinely serious alternatives $10,000 to $20,000 cheaper. Here is where we land. The collapse of the high-end ute market is not a mystery. It is the logical result of three forces arriving together: diesel prices that made weekly running costs painful, price escalation that pushed lifestyle vehicles into luxury territory during a cost of living crisis, and Chinese competition that has permanently redefined what $60,000 buys in a dual cab. The manufacturers built these vehicles for 2021. They priced them for a buyer with cheap diesel, low rates, and no real alternatives. That buyer still exists, but their situation has changed completely. Months of unsold inventory does not lie. Emergency fuel card deals from the country's most popular ute brand do not lie. An 18% segment decline does not lie. The market has made its decision. The only question is whether the people still about to sign the paperwork have heard it. And if this is the kind of thing you want before you make an expensive decision, not manufacturer talking points, not sponsored content, just the actual picture, subscribe. It's free, and the next one might save you more than you think. And if this confirmed what your gut was telling you, drop a comment. I read every one. Subscribe for this kind of no corporate sponsor reality check before you sign anything expensive. And share this with anyone currently in the ute market, because the truth always costs less than the alternative. See you in the next one.